everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Adversity to Awesome. And we actually have a fabulous guest who's joining us today, but she's not backstage yet. So I thought I would take this time to actually not block the people or back there, hello, and just review our book, Adversity to Awesome, which is really the genesis for this show. So this book is 12 chapters long, and each chapter is someone else's story about adversity that they overcame. And the first chapter is my chapter. So I actually interviewed all the people in this book and then put together with my book coach this wonderful compilation of really motivating, inspirational stories to help someone else who is struggling come forward and realize that they're not alone. So I'll just start off reading a little bit about my story, it starts on page 5 of the book. And then I'm going to read a little bit about Roland Friedel's story. Okay, Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, my story. The air was heavy. The humidity level was high. There was a pungent smell in the air. What was that smell? Was it a skunk? No, not a skunk at all. I would later learn this was the smell of marijuana. I could hardly breathe. To this day, whenever I smell pot, the horrific memories of that night come rushing back. The moonlight was shimmering on the Atlantic Ocean. This strip of beach runs along A1A in South Florida. The multi-million-dollar homes were behind us. Kurt, not his real name, led us to this beach walk through a friend's property where he was house sitting. This was much more than a house. This was a converted motel, like the one you might stay off of I-95, only Palm Beach County style. We walked to the property after leaving the bar. The plan was to take a beach walk and meet for drinks the next night, which would be an official date, dinner and drinks. After a quick tour of the property, he grabbed a lighter and lit a cigarette. There was that smell. He inhaled deeply. As the smoke left his nose and mouth, he asked me if I wanted a hit. I shook my head, no. I had never even smoked a cigarette, let alone done any drugs. I was a good girl and wondered what I was doing here. Oh, I remember. It was spring break. Our conversation seemed easy and fluid. Kurt was 25 years old. He had great aspirations for himself and was doing odd jobs to support his retirement dream. We were walking along the beach now. I silently hoped we would not encounter any ghost crabs or night crawlers. I've always been afraid of sea creatures because of my shellfish allergy. I breathed in deeply and put on a brave face. I felt safe until I saw the chair. Just one chair here on the beach, away from the view, from the street, away from the motel/home. Maybe someone had left it here unintentionally, or perhaps someone put it here purposefully. I was about to find out. And that's my chapter, just a little introduction to it. So if you want to find out what happened to me, you can buy the book over on my website, drjacalyn.com or usaglobaltv.com, or you can go to Amazon or any other fine stores. Okay, this is Roland Friedel, the Free Spirit, page 105. So I'll read a little bit about his. Roland Friedel is one of our team members here. He's also been a great mentor to me, and he's a dear friend. Roland Friedel is a successful businessman today. However, part of his past is missing from his memory. Repressed childhood trauma, years blocked out of memory may have several causes. But for Roland, he has absolutely no recollection of a significant portion of his childhood. In his late 20s, nearly 30 years ago, Roland learned that his younger brother, Robert, had committed suicide. He had a difficult time coping with it. Finally, however, he was successful. And even though this was a very traumatic event, he had a disconnect, trying to understand it. There was no advance warnings to indicate any suicidal tendencies. It was a total surprise to Roland, especially since he was 2 years older than his brother. Roland shows little emotion regardless of the situation. He believes part of the reason is an earlier childhood ordeal. His parents could not handle end of life activities, and Roland assumed that responsibility. This became a distraction that helped soften his emotions. Even when he saw his brother in the funeral home, he literally did not believe Robert to be dead. Finally, it clicked that there was no way back when you pass. Roland began to think about death. It can happen anywhere and at any time. Recently, Roland had an online session with his therapist in Germany. Over 28 years later, he was able to let his brother's death go. That is a long time to carry that emotional burden. He has his brother's ashes in his home and now plans to consecrate his ashes properly. His therapist discovered earlier events that were shocking and distressful, that probably added to the bouts of darkness and depression. So, I'll leave you with that and invite you to pick up your copy of the book, Adversity to Awesome by Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and to honor the people who shared their stories here. All right. Thank you so much. Our guest is not here yet. So I'm going to bid you adieu for now and invite you to please go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and watch the previous episodes of this show. Last week, we had a fabulous guest, and Brenda was here. She shared with us about the fact that life threw her three major curveballs that any one of them could have just taken someone out. And she put it up to God. She asked God, how are you going to get me out of this? So it's a really moving show. Excuse me. And I invite you to go over and check it out. All right. Thanks so much. We'll be back shortly. I'm losing my voice.